we're jumping into the City Nature Challenge, which is coming up in the spring of 2024. So this is primarily to get people up to speed on what it is and how to take part and all those fun details. So this is our info session. We're recording this as well, and we're going to post it to the website as well for anybody who wasn't able to join at this exact time. So the recording will be there probably in a few days to a week. So we'll kind of announce that as well for if you know of anybody that was interested in attending but can't, or if you need to check back and refresh your memory on some of things, we will, it'll be up there. I'd also like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which Canadian Wildlife Federation is located and where I live, work, and play is the unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people. The Algonquin people have inhabited and cared for these lands long before today. And so we take this time to be grateful for and the care and show gratitude and respect to them and to the land for all that it provides us. I'm James Pagé. Some of you know me. I see some returning organizers. I'm the Species at Risk and Biodiversity Specialist here at Canadian Wildlife Federation. I also help manage the iNaturalist iNaturalist platform in Canada. So I've got wear a few different hats. I'd also like to introduce and let Acacia introduce herself as well. She's with us as well, working at Canadian Wildlife Federation. So Acacia, do you want to just say hi and mention who you are?
Yeah, so as James said, my name is Acacia. I work at CWF as the iNaturalist engagement coordinator, and my job is essentially to find new and different ways to engage Canadians with the iNaturalist platform, whether that's through engaging with users themselves or partners. So I'm just kind of here to support iNaturalist-based things from a CWF perspective, and that will include the City Nature Challenge.
Awesome, thanks. So a couple of logistics. I'm sure everybody's pretty comfortable with Zoom these days, but just in case, if you're having any audio problems, obviously check your audio settings. You can do that in the settings in Zoom. If it doesn't seem to work out, you can always leave the meeting and rejoin with the same link, and that tends to kind of fix things. We do have the chat enabled, as everyone is seeing. So trying to make this a little more interactive. So if you have comments or questions as we're going through, you can pop them in the chat. Can't guarantee you I can get to all of those while talking, but between Acacia and I, we can jump in on a bit of that chat as well. If you'd like to ask a question or comment, you can also raise your hand. I'd like to, as much as possible, keep those to the end because I may cover some of that stuff as we go. So the questions might get answered throughout. But you can raise your hand, and being a webinar, we can't allow everybody to have their videos on, but I can give access to people to pose their question if you want to actually talk in this meeting. So you can raise your hand and we can get to you. Also, you can write your questions in the Q&A that you can find at the top or bottom of your screen, depending on your platform or your device that you're on. That way, those questions won't get lost as we're going along. So with that, I'm just going to talk a little bit about what the City Nature Challenge is, what it is in Canada, and then go on about what's involved in organizing and a little bit more background of what CWF does in respect to that, and how we can help you along. So City Nature Challenge started in 2016 as a competition just between two cities, so Los Angeles and San Francisco. And it was basically just a friendly competition between the two cities to be like boasting bragging rights as far as who can get the most observations of species over the course of 4 days in April. From there, it expanded over the next year to a few more cities in the US that really thought it was kind of a cool idea. And it's gone international with now last year, over 440 cities took part across the globe, including 40 of them here in Canada. So essentially, it's a annual like BioBlitz. So BioBlitz meaning an initiative to record as many species and observations as possible of wildlife, including plants and fungi, within a certain time period, and this being 4 days. The 4 days is in April, and I'll get into the dates and stuff in a little bit. So globally, it's run by the teams at California Academy of Sciences and the Natural History Museum of Los Angeles. So basically, it's a way for everybody to collaborate in this, and as well as in a friendly competition to see what can be accomplished. We can all work towards a common goal, and in this case, in a biodiversity stream goal. So why bother participating here? Well, we do have a Canada-specific initiative that I'll talk about, and you could win bragging rights as the city that has the most observations or engages the most people or most people per capita to try and level the playing field. So there's one thing. We also it provides biodiversity data. That's the main goals of the City Nature Challenge are to engage people with nature and get people engaged with nature, to observe what's around them. So that connection part, but also to capture and record biodiversity data in and around our cities. There's also a great opportunity to learn from experts, people in your local areas that are helping to identify observations, that are out maybe leading events. So it's a way to engage with people that know a whole lot about biodiversity in the area. We here in Canada, I'll get to that in a little bit actually. So basically what it is, as I mentioned, it's a BioBlitz, but there are kind of two sections that happen here. So there's here's the date. So April 26th through to May 5th in 2024. The first kind of main focus of this is the actual getting out and recording observations. So that's the first 4 days. It runs from a Friday to a Monday to encompass a weekend for people who can get out on the weekends, as well as a couple of weekdays for those that can get out maybe as part of their job or take a nice Friday afternoon off. So that's the April 26th to 29th. So that's the period that observations have to be recorded, or at least the photos taken. And then there's time from up until May 5th where people can kind of finish uploading photos to iNaturalist. And we're primarily using the iNaturalist app here in Canada or up online at inaturalist.ca. So any observation that's recorded using iNaturalist within that time period of April 26th to 29th will automatically be added to the project. So automatically added to the City Nature Challenge. So all people have to do is snap and upload photos during that time period. Now, uploading can continue on through to May 5th. So that's kind of the confusing part, but it had to have been recorded by April 29th. So that kind of second extension period up until May 5th is to kind of finish off uploading things, but also the critical component of identifying the observations. So this is a time where once photos are uploaded, people can go online and take part to help identify all those things that were recorded during the 4 days of the City Nature Challenge. So that's the kind of the two parts into this into this initiative. Now, I realize that end of April is not ideal for a lot of places here in Canada. Some places are still under snow. Unfortunately, it being a global initiative, the timing was pretty set, and we've tried for pretty much every year since it started to see if we can convince them to change the dates a little bit, to push it a little bit more into the summer. But unfortunately, that's not going to happen. So we're kind of using this as a good awareness piece. We're aware that, not all species are out and about at that time of year, but it's a good kind of awareness piece as a kind of a springboard into the field season and get people engaged and thinking about getting out and after potentially a long winter and getting outside and noticing what is coming back and out and around. So this is also why we developed City Nature Challenge Canada in a kind of a way to level the playing field a bit. So, we're in Canada with a kind of just beginning into the spring season, don't have the same opportunity of number of species out as somewhere like San Francisco. So our idea was to develop the City Nature Challenge in Canada to as like kind of this challenge within the global City Nature Challenge, to kind of put all Canadian cities on a bit more of a level playing field, so that we have this kind of competition going on, and we can have a little bit bit more localized effort. And of course, across the country, there's still going to be some differences of springtime from, Vancouver versus Whitehorse, but it's a little bit better than competing against San Francisco. But essentially, as I said, it's challenge within the challenge. So anything that's added within a project in Canada is also going to go, the cities will also still be in the global City Nature Challenge. And despite the time of year, I should mention that 6 of our Canadian cities last year were in the top 50 cities around the world in terms of number of observations. So we're still in the running, even despite the timing, and due in large part to the dedication from people taking part. For the Canadian initiative, we're, as I said, exclusively using iNaturalist for data recording, which CWF happens to manage here in Canada, along with our partners, Parks Canada and NatureServe Canada. In some other parts of the world, they're using a combination of iNaturalist and other platforms, but the vast majority still just uses iNaturalist. So CWF, we serve as the umbrella for organizing the City Nature Challenge Canada across the country. Our role is to promote and encourage participation kind of on the national level. We help to do this as by creating communications materials, which we put out, but also for cities that are running their own that can use those and customize them to help promote locally. And then we schedule and kind of connect all the organizers across the country that can kind of help bolster some friendly competition, but also kind of help streamline our organizing in Canada and the initiatives across the country here. One thing we don't do, though, is to go in and actually communicate locally or do the local promotion for the cities themselves. That would be on the organizer of the city to undertake. But as I said, we have a bunch of materials that we can offer that can help you along the way. Just kind of having a quick glance at the chat. I don't see anything popping up, so I'll keep going. I did want to clarify. I mean, I've talked about the global versus Canadian initiative. I just did want to kind of, I know it gets a little confusing as we have, a local event like a city that fits into the Canada-wide City Nature Challenge that fits into the global City Nature Challenge. So there's kind of 3 tiers. So I wanted to kind of clarify a little again what the difference is between citynaturechallenge.org, which is the global City Nature Challenge, and then .ca. Essentially, anybody observing something within a city goes into the iNaturalist project that would be created by the city, that gets automatically added to the Canada tally, then also added to the global tally. So basically, anything that gets recorded does kind of make its way up through all these 3 tiers of the City Nature Challenge. As I mentioned, for .org, it's led by the California Academy of Sciences and the Natural History Museum of Los Angeles. They manage the overall results. They put together some communications around like kind of the global initiative. They have an umbrella project in iNaturalist, which basically just tallies all the global counts, but then shows the leaders of all the cities within the whole across the globe. To officially be part of the City Nature Challenge, you do need to sign up with citynaturechallenge.org. The link on their website says that they're only accepting people or cities for 2025. So I'm going to pop a link in the chat, which is directly, and we're going to put that also on citynaturechallenge.ca, which takes you to the global form to register your city, because it isn't expired. There is time to still sign up for 2024. Just to be aware that the link on their website isn't the 2024 one. From there, you'll need to add your city information and your iNaturalist project to their spreadsheet eventually, once you submit the form, and you'll end up on their mailing list to receive information from them. And there will be a link to a spreadsheet to add in your information kind of at a later date. It's not something that has to be done like immediately, but that's through citynaturechallenge.org. They also host periodic meetings to keep organizers up to date on track with some certain milestones that they have to kind of be hit. On the other side, citynaturechallenge.ca. Obviously, we manage the Canadian results. We'll have an umbrella project as well in iNaturalist just for the Canadian projects. So basically, the local cities, and we're going to get into what the projects look like that Acacia is going to run us through. But basically, a project within iNaturalist that then will get added to both the Canadian umbrella project that tallies the Canadian cities, as well as the global city nature challenge. They will also add that. And so I just saw in the chat some relevant questions that do you have to register your whole city, and how do you know if the city is registered or not? There will be a spreadsheet to show which cities are registered. That's not out there yet to organizers, and that eventually, once that if you sign up to your city, you will get an email from citynaturechallenge.org organizers eventually with a spreadsheet that you can check to see which cities are taking part. If you don't think your city is participating or don't know, you can sign it up, and what the citynaturechallenge.org folks will do, and this ties into the next question, is they'll connect the two or three or four people who have signed up their city to help kind of coordinate and promote the City Nature Challenge as like a single initiative. So yes, there can be more than one person representing a city, and there can be more than one organization. They will connect to, I thought I had my notifications off. They will connect to those people together to help kind of promote and run it. So if you don't know if your city is registered and you're really wanting to be part of it and have your city taking part, you can use the link that is found on citynaturechallenge.ca to register your projects, or to set up your city, sorry. And then that'll get kind of connected with other people if someone else has already signed up. You do have to register the whole city. It is the definition of what a city is kind of varies between regions. Some places will include the greater city area, like the greater Ottawa or greater Toronto area will be considered, they'll put that in as one city. It's not necessary to have the greater area, but it does provide more opportunity to engage people, and especially if there's several of the kind of the cities within that greater area are taking part, if it does kind of improve your chances for kind of finishing up in a bit higher for number of observations, but it also helps with promotion and kind of having this kind of larger initiative. Something that can be done is then within that is you can kind of challenge the boroughs kind of within those larger cities to then have those, and as Mary is writing right now, have those challenged within districts between two cities, so that you can kind of encourage a little bit of local fun competition as well. So yeah, it does have to be the whole city. You don't have to have city officials involved. It doesn't have to be run by the city officials whatsoever. A lot of places it's not, in fact. So there doesn't need to be any endorsement. You can basically just, we'll get into the iNaturalist project, but you create the boundary, and you can create the boundary for that city, and it doesn't have to be an official city endorsed thing, but you should use the municipal boundaries that are recognized to make sure that it's comparable across from one city to the next as well. As I was saying, so what other part of iNaturalist.ca, as I mentioned, there's no form to sign up. We do have the form on citynaturechallenge.ca, but that's, as I mentioned, that's the global form. But we would like to know that you're participating, just so we can keep track of who is, and that you want to be part of the Canada-wide initiative. You can send us an email. We'll also see that global spreadsheet, so we'll be able to kind of pick out who's on there, and within that, the lead organizers will have their email that we would like to reach out to, if for those that are in Canada. We'll also get the iNaturalist project link. So eventually when you create an iNaturalist project and put it in that spreadsheet, we'll be able to just grab that from that spreadsheet. So you don't have to send it to us. We'll be able to create the umbrella project, so the larger project in Canada, from those links. So there's nothing to have to do this year to send it to us. And we'll also host a couple of meetings here in Canada for organizers, just to help kind of steward everybody along here, get in touch and share ideas to help increase the impact and uptake here amongst our Canadian cities. So yes, as Grace just mentioned in the chat, citynaturechallenge.ca, and our link does say they're not accepting responses. And thanks, I wanted to mention that we're about to update that link on our website for the one that is accepting 2024 responses for entries. We'll drop that in the chat, but we're in the midst of updating that link. So hang tight, and if it's not by the end of this week, it will be early next week to be able to register.
There's just one question, James, that that's in the Q&A that I thought we could address now. Leslie wants to know, her organization covers several cities, so how should they go about managing that?
Good question. I mean, if you have the capacity, you can put in for more than one city. If you think you can pull it off to advertise across a few different cities, one organization could technically run a couple of City Nature Challenge cities. So that's doable, especially if you have, local offices. It does kind of take a person locally to help, meet with people and promote and get, talk with other organizations to help them promote. But yes, one organization could do a couple of different cities. The other option is if you have presence in another city, but, don't plan on leading, I don't know, 3 or 4 of them, then you could still sign up the city with the intent and hope that you're going to then maybe find a local partner who will help deliver that as well. We've done that in the past where, we'd sign up the city, like we fill out the form, and then just to make sure that that city gets added, and then we try and work with a partner or someone else that can help kind of take the lead on that. So that's also another option. And submitting via the form, well, I was going to say it doesn't commit you, fully that you can't back out, but I wouldn't, I would recommend only if you actually have serious intent to follow through with it, to fill out the form, not just kind of just in case. But there still is ability to not have to go through it if something falls through. Okay. So to come back to the project and the boundaries I was talking about. So what does it actually look like on the ground in a city? It can really be as big or as small as somebody wants to put into it. I'm talking big or small as far as an event, as opposed to, well, I guess it also geographically as well. But basically it needs a concerted push to get people participating. In its core, we're really trying to get people out to take part, to record observations using iNaturalist and engage with the biodiversity that's there, appreciate nature, and record observations. So, if I wouldn't suggest kind of putting your city and just hoping that people are going to take observations and take part without any kind of promotional or push behind that. And as I mentioned, it doesn't have to be a single organization. You can partner with as many local ones that can boost participation, engage different audiences. And it doesn't always have to be a nature group. It could be, other groups like, Girl Guides, Scouts, could be outdoor clubs, or even like local library. So, any of those groups that can help promote and have a membership type or subscriber list, or, people that they reach out to would be a great partner to kind of engage with. So like I said, in and of its core, it's basically 4 days of observing. So that's kind of the big push, is we're trying to get people out anywhere within a boundary like you see here, automatically gets added during those 4 days. This is the MVRD. Metro Vancouver Regional District project that they have already created and showing the boundaries there. And this is a good example as well. Like Halifax has, is there's several cities within that are taking part, and this year they're combining into the larger regional district to help kind of boost participation, work together, and then they can still, if they choose to have this kind of friendly competition within these various cities within the regional district. So basically, as I said, anything that's recorded using iNaturalist within this boundary that you see here are automatically added into the cities project, which is then adds to the Canada-wide tally and the global tally. Now, another layer with that is it doesn't prevent any, it doesn't have to be exclusively people just kind of going out on their own. You could have events within the city, and it doesn't have to be all 4 days, but something like a BioBlitz could happen at a number of places, say across the city, across this regional district, that are localized, maybe, even 1 day event within those 4 days. They don't always have to be on the same day within those 4 days. So you could have these events within the city boundaries as well, if you're to have some BioBlitzes or some initiatives that would get people out kind of as a participation. So it could be, a single day BioBlitz. You could have smaller meetups that just like encourage people either to get together on their own or a little more organized and head to local parks or small local areas. Could even just have kiosks or info booths in different spots, like in the parks, in the regional parks, or green spaces around. And you can do virtual events as well, like encourage people to get out by doing, you have an info session online, and then encourage people to get out, or have things like virtual identification parties where people try and get together to identify the observations that have been found, recorded during the City Nature Challenge. And I'm going to pause my sharing now and let Acacia show you what the projects look like to help try and make this a little more concrete.
Perfect.
So you're all set there, Acacia, if I stop sharing?
Yep, while I'm changing over, there is one question I think you can answer while I do that. Victoria wants to know how iNaturalists protect the plant and animals in these types of challenges. So what kind of conservation work is being done by this?
Yeah, so the observations that go into iNaturalist are accessible to anybody. Their researchers definitely consult iNaturalist for a lot of the research projects. There are thousands of publications that cite iNaturalist as a data source. The data also goes through to the local, or the provincial conservation data centers. So in every province has their data center that manages track species, rare species, so species at risk. And the information also goes through to when they're making assessments, carrying out assessments on endangered species in Canada, and that data that people gather for the City Nature Challenge, but also all year round, goes into making some of those conservation decisions. So it's there for conservation science, but also education for people to learn what's around, what's in your neighborhood. And there's that engagement side for people to kind of connect with those species and spaces that they're exploring as well. So the data is shared. It's used pretty widely for conservation work. We've published a couple of papers that have used turtle observations within iNaturalist to address threats, or to look at threats to turtles in primarily Ontario and Quebec. And there's lots of other researchers that are doing the same.
So this is what the page looks like on iNaturalist. So this is the Canadian Wildlife Federation. And just some things to note, like you can track how many people you have joining your project. This is the button they would click. Here, I'll just quickly click on this. It's just kind of like a blurb about your project. So here we have the results from the City Nature Challenge, and we do that both in French and English. And before that, there was just like a blurb about what the City Nature Challenge is and what is the Canadian Wildlife Federation's role in contributing to the City Nature Challenge Canada. And here you can see the leaderboard. Last year's winners were Calgary, and you can kind of break this down by observations, species, and the number of observers. So if you go back to observations quickly here, this will link me to the City Nature Challenge, particularly for Calgary. So I could see how many observations they had, the number of species, the number of identifiers, as well as the observers. So for cities who are interested in maybe letting their participants know about what this event led to and what kind of data they can draw, you can simply kind of scroll through here and get a really great idea of the observations that were taken, most observations, most species. If you want to get into contact with people, you can also look at the stats if that's what you're looking to report. So here you can kind of get a breakdown of what the program requirements are. So like you'll have to set these. So we're setting it to all taxa, and here's like where you can set your location bounds. So that's where if you have multiple cities within a geographical area, you kind of add in these cities to combine to a larger map, and you set your requirements. If you wanted to look at a geographic distribution of where all the observations were coming from, you can see a lot of them were centered around here, in these kinds of areas. And these are the kinds of things you can see and use and tools to kind of get an understanding of how your city's doing. If you are challenging another city nearby you, you can use this to kind of see where you are in comparison with them and to do that kind of last push. But I will quickly go back to the Canadian one. And again, there's a thing called a project journal. You can write journals to all your participants, asking them, providing them with the challenge of the day. Like maybe you have a species in mind that's prevalent in your area and you want to challenge all the members of the project to get at least one observation there. Also, a really cool thing about iNaturalist is you can extract the data if you want to export it. So if you wanted to export all the observations, and you didn't have a particular preference of which one you wanted, you could just click this and it would take you to the queue where you could export this data into a CSV file, and you can use that to create stats and infographics specifically for your region. Again, here's what the global map looks like, and you can kind of see the distribution all the way over here in St. John's, and we kind of make our way across Canada all the way through to Vancouver. And I think that's really all I wanted to highlight. It's a really cool tool. In terms of setting it up, you do have to set up your project, but myself and James are here to help you, especially if you provide me with the project description and the about section, the photo you want to use and the title of it. I'm happy to help you and facilitate those and transfer the project over to you. If you set up your project, but you're not sure if you set the right requirements, you can send me the link and I can check and make sure that you have the right things. We're really just here to support you guys and help you ensure that it's a smooth project and upload process. But here you can kind of see again all the cities that participated last year and what the numbers kind of looked like. So I will stop sharing my screen now.
Awesome, thank you. Yes, and this is relevant too, as the question is came into asking what's expected from organizers. I think I might touch on that later on, but I'll mention it now anyway, and then I'll skip it after if it was still something I was going to talk about. So basically, this is a great example of one of the main things is to create the iNaturalist project. So that's required by the organizer to create a project. As Acacia said, we can help out with that. It's really pretty easy. You have to have an iNaturalist account. You go in, there's a site or a page within iNaturalist.ca for projects. You start a new project, you fill in the parameters that you need. So you put in the dates for the City Nature Challenge, you add a boundary, which is the city boundary that you're targeting. And that's basically it. You write up a description and then click create and it creates your project. And then after the fact, Acacia and I can find that and add it to the Canadian umbrella project that you just saw. That'll show up on the list of all the cities that are participating in Canada. So that's a main one, is to create the iNaturalist project. You can, as Acacia said, write journal posts. So if you get people to join, members of iNaturalist can click to join projects. So anybody within your city, you can encourage, hey, join our project, and you can get journal posts, which are basically just, you can write a post that then gets pushed out to all the people that have joined your project. So that's another kind of way of engaging people. So the main requirements are basically that creating the iNaturalist project, encouraging people to participate, whether that's through just your own organization or local media or local partners. And then there are a few meetings that the iNaturalist.org, so the global folks require, which is, I think there's like three or four between now and when the City Nature Challenge happens in April. And it's basically, there's a few time slots you'd show up. I think it's maybe an hour-long meeting that you can sit in and listen to. I think you have the option to listen to the recording afterwards if you can't make one of those times as well. So those are your main requirements as an organizer. And as I said, a main one is to work on encouraging people to take part. I think that's a big part of it. It can be, as we mentioned, it can be as big or as small as you have the capacity to make it. Some organizers plan out and host a day-long BioBlitz, an initiative to bring out hundreds of people to a certain site within your city to take part, and you can have kind of a festival to engage people and kind of go the whole 9 yards. And you could have multiple ones within those 4 days if you really had the capacity. But it's not essential. The main part is to think creatively as to how you're going to get the citizens, the people of that location, that city, to get out and take part. Similarly, another question was about how to get connected as a partner. I would say if you're very keen on your city taking part and available to be potentially the lead or a partner, I would suggest filling in that form online. And then, as I mentioned, citynaturecechallenge.org could connect you with anybody else that's organizing. If you really are, you may get stuck being the only organizer is the downfall of that. If you really don't think that's something that you can handle, you could wait and you can reach out to Acacia or I at Canadian Wildlife Federation. And if your city is taking part, we could then probably connect you with the organizer. The risk of that is there may not be somebody that leads your city, and you may not you may not have anybody to partner with on that front. But usually, I mean, I've found with a lot of cities, once there's one organization that takes a lead, it's a pretty easy initiative to have others uptake and join on. There's not a huge commitment. Basically, a lot of partners, you can just see if they can promote it as a big thing. Just encourage their constituents to head out and take part during the City Nature Challenge. So that kind of makes it a bit easier to run, and it also works, as a virtual event, and was definitely well within the time of the pandemic. We were still able to get, some people were still able to head out and take part on their own and distancing and all that. So that does lend itself well to that. I will also then go back and share to continue on. Perfect. So as Acacia mentioned, just to give a quick rundown on what we had last year as far as kind of the numbers go and what the magnitude of this could be. The first years of the City Nature Challenge, it kind of almost broke iNaturalist. I don't think the platform was ready to handle an influx of nearly 2 million observations early on. They've managed to now, because they have a little more heads up and aware of the magnitude of number of observations. But to think that in just 4 days around the world, we had nearly 2 million observations of species recorded, which is kind of unfathomable. Here in Canada, we were able to contribute nearly 75,000. And you can see the number of participants and species and the full results. And again, kudos to Calgary for taking the top seed as the most observations, city with the most observations in Canada. But also notably Cape Breton, that had 1/10 of the population, or maybe less than some of these other cities, still finished in the top several spots, I think, as far as cities go. So there was some real keen people which is why we like to show the observations per capita that shows the participation kind of more relative to the population of the area. And so, yeah, this is something else that CWF puts out. We put out some communications nationally as far as media goes, and then communicate the results at the end. We try and get as much national pickup as we can. We put it out to some of the larger news networks. We can't predict exactly what they're going to pick up, but in general, we have had pretty good, either through CWF or a lot of the local partners have got really great media pickup and good coverage on this. So to get involved, as I mentioned, the deadline is November 17th to enter your city. And as I mentioned, the link will be found at citynaturechallenge.ca. And yes, I'll put it in the chat once I have a second. And it doesn't, as I mentioned, it doesn't have to be the city officials, although it's great if you can get the actual municipality involved. But in some cases, it's just really keen individuals that are using iNaturalist and have a network of people or connections that they can encourage people to take part. A lot of the cases as well, it's organizations, local conservation organizations, typically field naturalist clubs in some areas. And then in some cases, it is the municipality that's taking the lead on it. As I meant, oh yeah, there it is. I was mentioning what's required of to be an organizer. So as I mentioned, some meetings, collaborate with us through the Canada initiative. I mentioned the project for iNaturalist, and as I mentioned, a main one is promoting and getting people engaged and outside and taking part. There are a few milestones along the way to complete. As I mentioned, there's like a spreadsheet to fill out, and there's a few extra bits of information that has to be added along the way. But that part is pretty minimal. I think it's really the engagement part that's a main focus to work on. Also, there's a few different ways to take part. It's a pretty good initiative for people that are looking to get out in nature, connect with nature. It's a pretty easy sell. You can basically work with city officials or encourage them to encourage your mayor to get involved, and councillors. And we have a kind of a form letter that we created from past years that is like an explanation of what the City Nature Challenge is, and basically the request to the city to and you can basically just fill in your city name, and you can send that into the mayor or the mayor's office to see if they're interested in taking part. So it's kind of one of the things we've provided. It just gives that breakdown and kind of almost a form letter to request. We have that for cities, but we also have that to request engagement from partners that explains the City Nature Challenge and puts out that request to them to see if they want to take part. Encourage working with other organizations, as I mentioned, that may have staff to take part, or supporters that can be encouraged to do the same. And really the bottom line, the messaging to everyone in the community is basically as easy as taking a picture. Taking that photo and uploading it to iNaturalist is basically all it takes to take part in the City Nature Challenge. There are also people within cities or within other cities that maybe aren't able to get out to record observations. There's also a real need to help identify observations. And this doesn't have to only be experts. Most people can tell what a robin is. So, even if somebody in your city goes through and identifies every American robin, that's still helpful. That's giving that kind of extra confirmation of the species that was found. And even triaging observations into their species group. So if someone puts something up as like an unknown species, at least pushing that into calling it a bird or a perching bird definitely helps to have the experts then that go through and just look for bird observations to identify, to help triage that a little bit. So every little bit helps, and people can contribute even if they're not able to get out and actually explore and take photos. So I think with that, if you have questions, there's Acacia and my email address. You're free to reach out to us. We are happy to answer additional questions either now or through email, help along with the iNaturalist project and show you some of those resources and basically we have kind of some formatted social media posts, a few kind of fillable posters that kind of outline what the City Nature Challenge is, and you basically just add in your city name that are like a PDF that you can send out to a mailing list or put up. So there's a few things that we offer in that sense, and as I mentioned, some templated social media posts that just can be pushed out with the dates on them for people that get involved. And we're trying to kind of unify the look of those things that go out, and just provide a resource for people to help them along. So if anybody has questions, and there are a few that came in through the chat and the Q&A, as I mentioned, you could raise hand if you feel like you want to ask your question kind of live. And we can get to some of those if anybody has other questions. As I'm waiting for that, I'm going to pull up the link to drop into the chat for the registration.
There is a question, James. So it says, how do you avoid duplicate observations?
Yeah, that's a good question. So for duplicate observations of your own, just you can see your observations that you've posted. Because it's definitely happens where you upload it through the app maybe, and then you're dragging a bunch of photos into the website, and then you happen to grab a photo that you already uploaded through the app. They're all date and time stamped, so you can sort your own observations by date and time that the photo was taken. So you'd be able to find your own observations that way, to be able to find any duplicates. The trickier part is when you're, say out in a BioBlitz and there's a group of people that all see the same trillium, and there's 20 photos of that one plant. I think that comes down to awareness for the group, and just to basically, if you're taking people out, to say, hey, if you see 3 or 4 other people taking a picture of that one individual, and it's especially if it's a plant, maybe take another trillium, but maybe go to one beside, or not the exact same species, same individual of that species. Or the other option is, good practice is to just make a note of that in the notes of the observation. You can add notes and just say, this is 3 other people have recorded the same thing as part of a guided walk or a BioBlitz. I'm just pulling up that. I was supposed to have that link all handy, and then I lost it. So I'm pulling that up for everyone to add. As I said, it will be on our website, citynaturechallenge.ca. So there would be a link for it there as well. And I am grading it right here. So I'm just going to paste that into the chat.
There is another question, James, but I won't distract you, and I could probably answer this about prizes. So there is no actual prize itself other than bragging rights. And being on that infographic that James shared as the best city for that year in Canada. But if you have suggestions as maybe other incentives we need to consider, I'm sure James and I and people at CWF are open to that. But right now it's just simply bragging rights.
Yeah, it is something we've been talked about, or has been asked about in the past. I think it would be a fun add-on to try and have some kind of prize or unveiling, crowning of the winner. So it's something we can talk about here at CWF, and see if there's something we can put together, because I think that would be a fun addition to the CNC, and it has been brought up in the past. So it's we're well ahead of time. So maybe something we can work towards.
Perfect. Leslie just said thanks. And it's also something they can do within groups. So if you want to offer incentives to your own cities for participation or for your top 10 observers, that's something you can do as well.
Yeah, that is true that within your own city itself, you can have prizes. We've tried that in the past for the top observer. We did it, I think, Canada wide, for the most observations or most species. Probably might be a bit better because then you avoid people taking a million photos of a dandelion. But everybody within their own city can definitely try and encourage some extra observations and extra participation that way as well, for sure. There's nothing that prevents that. The nice thing as well is Acacia showed those projects. It tracks all the observations, but it also tracks all the observers. So it's really easy to see that list of top observers, and really quick way to compare and see who's doing what. Something we'd like to encourage too, though, is to try and get more observers taking fewer. Well, we don't want to encourage fewer photos, but we want to encourage to engage more people, even if they're only taking 5, 10, 15 pictures or observations. That's great to engage more people, because if you can get 100 people taking 20 observations, you're really done a great job, as opposed to one person or two people that are really blowing it out of the water, taking 1,000 each. It'd be great to kind of spread that out a little bit too. We got so we're about 5 minutes ahead of time. Not seeing any other questions coming in. So I think with that, we'll just thank everybody. Oh, I did want to actually, before we go, I'm going to try this. I created a poll, just curious to get a sense of who is thinking of taking part. So I'm going to try this, and I'm going to launch this poll, and it's basically just a one question thing to see how likely you think you might be joining the City Nature Challenge in 2024. So that should be live now. I think people should see it on their screen. And it's totally okay if you're not signing up and you're just wanting to use this as information. That's no judging. It's all anonymous anyway, but good to know. Okay, it looks like everybody's clicked in. A couple more coming in. I'll give it another minute. Okay. Great. It looks like people are either quite likely or someone will definitely. So that's great to hear. I think if I end this, you'll see the results. Yeah, there we go. Just give everyone else a sense too, to see, it's looking quite good. Great to see the uptake from folks here on the call, and happy that we were able to provide a bit of extra info. As I said, you can reach out to Acacia RI. Our email addresses are up there. You can also be able to find us through just messaging CWF, our info line, and someone can put you through to one of us as well for giving you extra information. And yeah, with that, I would like to thank everybody for participating and taking the time. And as I said, this is recorded, so if you know of anybody that didn't get a chance to take part today, then they can all listen in and watch the recording of this. So yeah, thanks everyone from across the country, and look forward to seeing you all in the further future meetings.
Bye, everyone.